Death Valley game on the line, almost like old times. Oh, so close for Florida State. Forget the final score. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that in particular. But hey, whether it's 24-20 or 30-20, Florida State loses in Death Valley to old foe Clemson. Welcome to Florida State Seminoles Live. Lock it in for the next hour. You got Jason Parker. You got me. Hopefully Logan's out there somewhere trying to make his way to a computer.
We're representing Logan. I got the Knoll Game Day shirt that he gave me at the UMass game. Shout out to the gentleman from Knoll Game Day. So I'm technically repping Logan since he can't show up. I'd like to apologize for last week for not showing up. I'd like to blame the Florida Panthers completely, 110%. I take no blame for that, for the Florida Panthers scheduling a game on Wednesday. I apologize.
Yes, it is hockey season, isn't it? Many of us would not be aware of that.
I also like to think that because I wasn't with MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, that's why Florida State lost. I'm just saying.
So you're blaming the Florida Panthers for your lack of an appearance last week. Who are you going to blame for the Florida State loss to Clemson?
Me not showing up here, so by default that would be caused by the Florida Panthers. So once again, we're blaming the Florida Panthers.
Okay.
We're deflecting. All blame will go towards the Florida Panthers for this one.
You had your opportunity to start taking shots at Mike Norvell all the way down the list.
First of all, we did all that in September. I think we talked about this before. I projected Florida State to lose by 10 points. I said Florida State would lose 27-17. That was my prediction before this game. I think there was a lot of people, including, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, Logan, and some of the members of the Knoll Game Day staff, when they all predicted Florida State was going to win. This was finally the time Florida State was going to beat Clemson. Clemson came into that game where Clemson's 3 losses were better than our 3 wins. Clemson's 3 losses were to ranked Georgia, NC State, and Pitt teams. Our 3 wins were against a middle-of-the-road ACC Atlantic Syracuse team, a middle-of-the-road this season ACC Coastal North Carolina team, and a UMass team that arguably was one of the worst FBS teams I've seen play, likely in forever. That was arguably one of the worst teams. So we came into that game with a lot going against us, number one. Number two, and we'll talk about this as the hour goes on here, you can't give Clemson those chances at home. You can't give Clemson the benefit of the doubt. That last drive where Clemson scored the touchdown that put them up 24-20, the 2 15-yard penalties. I'm sorry, that late hit out of bounds, we could talk about it. He was clearly still in bounds when contact was made. That was not late hit. That being said, you cannot put that in the position where the referee has to make that call on the road at Clemson. Clemson is going to, by default, get that call. With all that being said, you have to give some credit to Florida State for the way they played. That's the best Florida State has played against Clemson, I'd argue, probably since 2017, when they were only down 17-14 in the fourth quarter. You could say it was probably the best game they played against them, I'd say probably since 2016, when they had the lead late in the fourth quarter, and Clemson came back to win that one. So I think there's a lot of hope and promise. That being said, it also puts a lot of question marks on this last month of the season, knowing that Florida State has to go 3-1 against arguably their hardest month of the season, of the 3 months coming up.
It was fun for me, just as a college football fan, to just kick back and see, not that it was some kind of scintillating scoring contest, because it certainly wasn't that. It was a grinded out, defensive-minded, sloppy football game, but it was competitive, hard-hitting, down to the wire. Just to see those 2 uniforms on the field and see a score 20-17, 24-20, and not see 59-10, and be locked into that game all the way through. It was fun.
We don't talk about the 59-10 game. That game didn't happen. That game did not happen. I don't know what game you're speaking of.
Did I just pull that out of thin air then?
I think you did. I think you just made the game. But no, yeah. But you make an excellent point. I will agree with you on that one. And I think this gives Florida State a decent amount of confidence. And we talked about a little about it before. Clemson is still the standard in the ACC. I get that Wake Forest will more than likely win the Atlantic Division this season. Clemson is still technically not out of it. There is still a situation where Clemson could win the Atlantic, but more than likely it's going to be Wake Forest, maybe NC State are going to win the Atlantic Division this year. Clemson right now is still the standard in the ACC. And Florida State showed in this game that they can play with the standard right now. That Clemson defense that we played this week is the best Clemson defense, as the best defense that Florida State is going to see over the last 5 games of the season. NC State's defense right now is injured. It's hot garbage. Miami's defense, yes, Miami's won 2 ranked games in a row. Let's give Miami credit. They've done their job against ranked teams the last 2 weeks, but their defense is injury plagued and hot garbage. Boston College is a garbage defense right now, and Florida's defense is on a much, I guess, downhill slide, you'll say, of anyone after giving up 49 points to LSU and 34 points to Georgia last week. So that's where I think Florida State can take some confidence going into this last month of the season is you hung with the best defense you're going to play. Now, how can you take those lessons? How can you take the lessons that NC State was exposed against Miami 2 weeks ago when Miami pulled off the 1-point upset? And how can Florida State take advantage of that coming up this week? This is where Florida State has to do. Florida State cannot look at it as, hey, we have to go 3-1 this season. You have to go 1-0 this week. Because one more loss and you're not making a bowl game. Because I think Florida State could conceivably lose 2 games in the last month of the season.
Well, we now see that Florida game at the end of the line, which isn't nearly as daunting as it once was.
And who said Florida State could pull off the upset over Florida? This guy. I said it first.
We both did. Yeah.
But I said it first.
I agreed.
Oh, here, I'll
I agreed.
There we go.
Pointing, and then I agreed.
No, but I think I agree with you. I think Florida will still obviously be the favorite coming into that game because, once again, the standard is look at who their losses are. The top 2 teams in the playoff, an LSU team on the road and a Kentucky team on the road. So that's why Florida will still be the favorite in that one. That being said, yes, the question's going to be at this point, while our offense can probably hang with these defenses a lot more than it looked at the start of the season, can the defenses stop those offenses? Florida's offense is still a good offense. Miami's offense with Tyler Van Dyke has shown they can play well. There's an argument that NC State's quarterback is the best quarterback in the ACC this season right now. That's 3 of our next 4 games right there. And Boston College on the road in a more than likely cold environment in Massachusetts. So the task is out there. Does Florida State have the confidence at this point to handle those tasks?
Yeah, I like what I see, but it's still certainly an offense that's not clicking at any kind of prolific rate. You've got a quarterback in Jordan Travis. He's taking care of the ball, and he's making some throws. For the first time this year, I would have to say, Jason, and not that it wasn't somewhat expected because of the Clemson defensive prowess that you outlined, the running attack was not anywhere in existence. Absolutely.
And that's the one thing. We talked about this on the postgame show with Nate and Steve after the game, if you could hear Nate with his Wi-Fi. That was the most disappointing part, is the fact that you've got a run game. And once again, I'm not going to sit there and even think about comparing Clemson to a UMass or a Syracuse or any of the other defenses that Florida State has success running the ball against this season. Because, like I said, that was the best defense Florida State is going to play in the regular season. But to see the drastic decline from what you've seen in the past 3 games, so that 3-game winning streak, to, I believe it was 68 total yards rushing on 34 carries was the final number. That has to be the biggest concern heading into this final part of the season. Is you've basically come to the point where if Florida State is not getting 200 yards rushing a game, they're going to lose that ball game. So now, how do you turn that around against NC State? And NC State's defense, like we said, they got exposed against Miami 2 weeks ago. They had a big win this past week against Louisville. But now here's that question. Can Florida State's speed rushers expose that defense again the same way Miami did 2 weeks ago.
Well, the more prolific offenses in the country, as you well know, will throw it for 300 plus, run it for 200 plus. But when they have one of those two components of the offense taken away, either by a great defense or they're not having that prolific passing day, they can rely on the other. Florida State cannot rely on a passing game right now. They need the running game. They need it from Jordan Travis and the backs. You know, this is the first time that Jayshon Corbin hasn't seemingly just carried the ball 10 or 12 times and suddenly it's 100 yards. It's like nothing, 8, 9, 10 yards a carry. Really was, and Clemson, they knew who they needed to focus on, and they did the job.
And I think it also goes back to show how little confidence might be an extreme statement, but how little trust right now Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham have in any of the other quarterbacks not named Jordan Travis. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Jordan Travis. I want him to be the starter the entire time, and I still say stick with him. I'm not saying that at all. But when you're struggling at quarterback, you have to consider that option. You know, Mackenzie Milton did not play it down in that game. Chuba Purdy did not play down that game, and he won't play another down for Florida State. We'll talk about that in a little while. Tate Rodemaker did not play it down in that game. What was the reasoning for keeping Jordan Travis in there the entire ball game? That's the question that I think has to be asked. Was if you're at this point, you're on the road, you're beating Clemson thanks to a defensive touchdown, Jermaine Johnson proving why I think he's the MVP of the entire team this season, the way he's played. You have the lead, you're finally able to get the lead, and then you give up that lead really quickly. And then I feel like you have to at least consider it. I'm not calling for Jordan to have been benched at that point, but I'm saying you have to at least consider it. And why was that not considered at all?
So let me get this straight. At what point in the game? So Johnson made that big play, which if you're a fan of defensive play, my goodness, basically just pickpocketed DJ Uiagalelei, just plucked it right out of his hand, knocked it on the ground, scoop and score. That was with about 4 minutes left to take the lead. And with the way Clemson was not moving the ball, I thought, not that the game was over, but hey, this is a bigger lead in a sense than most 3-point leads with 4 minutes left. I thought Florida State might be in good shape, and that might have been the game-winning play. But at what point in a game that was back and forth, a one-score game for the most part, do you make that move?
Then that's what I'm saying. I don't think I would have still made the move. I'm saying that the fact of the matter is right now, Jordan Travis is the only viable option at quarterback. And I think that goes back to a deeper question. Mackenzie Milton started 3 games in September, all 3 losses, but still started 3 games, threw the ball well against Louisville in his third start. When Florida State was struggling before the Jermaine Jackson touchdown, Florida State had been struggling throwing the ball, but yes, he had that one, I'm going to call it the luck touchdown, the 75-yard touchdown that was kind of a luck touchdown. Let's just be honest about it here. We're all friends here. We can be honest with each other. And from that point on, though, there was really a lot of sputtering in the passing game. So my question was, in the second quarter, in the third quarter, why was there not even a chance? And I'm not just saying Mackenzie Milton. I'm saying why wasn't Chuba put in? Why wasn't Tate Rodemaker put in? Both of them saw time against UMass. But I feel like they're in that ride or die mode with Jordan Travis. Is that going to be the best thing at the rest of the season? Now, obviously, they're down to 3 scholarship quarterbacks with the news today that Chuba Purdy has entered the vaunted transfer portal. So now it's down to 2 people. So is Mackenzie Milton – we talked about this before, the comments after the UMass game where he told the coach, hey, let the young guys get their reps, let the young guys get some playing time. Is he not physically there? I think that question has to be asked. Is he not physically at the point where he can play major college football right now?
I've got to think that Mike Norvell is putting a lot of confidence in Jordan Travis and is trying to confirm that he is the quarterback of the future. The guy now and the guy that will be the man in 22?
I mean, honestly, I think he is. I think he pretty much, the news today with Chuba Purdy entering the transfer portal pretty much cemented the fact that Jordan Travis will be the starting quarterback in 2022. And I'm just going to be honest, I would not be surprised to see Tate. I would not be surprised to see him explore his options, because I think it's going to be both Jordan. I think there's a lot of hope on AJ Duffy should he stick with his commitment to Florida State. I think it's going to be those two. So I think you could see Chuba both transfer, and I think you could honestly see Tate explore the portal before it's all said and done. And that has to be a little bit of a concern if you're Florida State. If you're saying you're one big hit by the LSU defense, by the Clemson defense, by the Miami defense, by the Florida defense, away from starting a true freshman in AJ Duffy, should he stick with his commitment? That's my concern looking ahead to 2022 at this rate, the quarterback position.
Well, if I'm a quarterback in the Florida State roster, if I'm Tate Rodemaker, AJ Duffy was obviously he's only going to be just starting at that point. I don't know if he's going to be an early enrollee to get spring practice in, but I got to be somewhat, not that Jordan Travis isn't doing a decent job, but unless I'm going to go to an FCS school or a lower group of 5 school where I know, hey, I got a serious shot at winning the job, and I'm most likely the most talented guy in the room, that I would just think that I would stick around, because this is a thin quarterback room. It's basically what you're speaking to. And Jordan Travis is not, he's not a top flight quarterback.
No, he's not. But you also have to look at it this way: if you're Chuba Purdy, you have to ask the question: why is Chuba Purdy? Where will he possibly go? Chuba Purdy could go back out west. Remember, he's an Arizona guy. He could go to Arizona. He could transfer to Arizona State. He could follow. I mean, they love the Purdy's at Iowa State. You don't know where he's going to go at this point. If you're Tate Rodemaker, you're from up in Georgia. There's always Georgia Southern. There's always Valdosta State, like you said, if you want to go to the next level. So you have options out there. You also have to look at the fact that I think Clemson showed once again how god awful right now our offensive line is. Even though a 3-game winning streak, our offensive line was still not great. So I think that's another question: is if you're Chuba Purdy, if you're Tate Rodemaker, do I want to keep getting my brains beaten out with a bad offensive line?
Bring those comments and questions in, folks, for the next 45 minutes or so for Jason and myself right here at FSU Seminoles Live. I don't know if you saw the message coming in from our boy Logan.
What did he say?
He's got a meeting.
He doesn't have a meeting. He's upset because Buster Posey announced that he's likely going to retire tomorrow. And Logan is a Giants fan. He's hurting right now. So we will sit Shiva for you later, Logan. Sorry for your loss.
Might be a personal meeting.
He's taking a personal day. That's what he's doing. He's drinking PBR and watching Buster Posey's highlights from World Series championships.
So we will take your comments and questions with the Clemson loss to move the team to 3-5 in the rearview mirror, and North Carolina State coming to town, coming off a win against Louisville. They scored a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter to salt away a 28-13 win. And as Jason alluded to, Devin Leary, one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC, 23 touchdowns. I read this, 21 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Yeah.
Coming in.
Yeah, I think the argument of him best quarterback right now in the ACC is it's clearly Devin Leary at this rate. By the way, solid pronunciation.
Kenny Pickett.
I think Pickett got exposed a little bit against Miami. I'd probably say Pickett, yeah, maybe Pickett won, but Leary's not that far behind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we had a conversation earlier this week with Corey Smith from Pack Pride on 247 Sports. We'll have that conversation right here on the Florida State channel, breaking down the NC State Wolfpack as they attempt to wrestle the Atlantic Division away from Clemson. They've already got a win head-to-head. They've got a big showdown with Wake Forest coming up, and those are the two teams that, with Clemson still maintaining an outside shot at taking the division, those are the two teams that are front and center right now. Do you have any hopes, now that Florida State's out of it, do you have any hopes, teams that you're rooting for that you would like to see in the conference championship game?
I guess by default it would have to be Wake Forest, just because I'm always going to dislike Clemson. NC State, I still dislike them from the Philip Rivers days. So I'd probably Wake Forest by default. Plus, Wake Forest, if they win the ACC, can't go to the Orange Bowl this year since that's a playoff game. So we won't have pissed off fans with no alcohol being sold. So that's a positive, I guess, for the Orange Bowl committee. So that's
So the disdain for North Carolina State, it just happened to start during the Philip Rivers days, or it's pointed toward Philip Rivers?
Philip Rivers talked so much crap when he was at NC State and never won anything. He talked so much crap for somebody who never won the ACC once, but yet he acted like he was Trevor Lawrence, and that's just I'm done with him. I'm done with him. He was nothing in the NFL. I'm sorry.
Philip Rivers was nothing in the NFL?
He was overrated. He was overrated. I'm sorry. This is just a hot take. We're bringing the hot take back for this one. I think Philip Rivers was an overrated quarterback. I think he was a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong.
That's what he was.
He was a good quarterback, but I don't think he was as good as people put him on a certain level. He was great at making children. He's got 25 of them?
Something in that range.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. He's maybe currently spitting out some more. I don't know. I won't keep up with it.
Good Catholic boy, having enough to fill up an entire parish at this rate, but.
All right. Mike Myrick on the line. We appreciate you encouraging everyone to hit the like button and support here at the Voice of College Football. As we talk Florida State, NC State. I have not looked at the point spread on this one. I would guess NC State 3.
3.5. I'll hold up half a pinky right there. 3.5, I think
it's
it was.
Going to go slightly higher than that.
Oh, okay.
Boone is letting us know that Norvell has to win this game or Florida State misses a bowl game. Well, not technically, but we get the point. Sad part is Clemson sucks. Florida State blew it. No moral victories, gentlemen. Travis was awful.
And see, here's and Boomer. I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with Boomer here a little bit on this one. The argument of Clemson being 4-3, and that automatically means Clemson sucks. Once again, let's go back to who Clemson's 3 losses were. Georgia, with arguably the best defense in at least the recent history of college football. You could make an argument for an all-time great defense right there. A ranked NC State team and a ranked Pitt team. They lost to good teams. Yes, they are not the same Clemson that they have been in past years, but Clemson does not suck. Clemson is still a good team. We have to stop acting once again like we're still on this level. We're the team that lost to Jacksonville State, guys. This is not a year that we need to act cocky and make fun of other teams at this rate. We are 3-5 because we lost to Jacksonville State. We lost to the Gamecocks. It could. Mr. HD, I know he's a Cane. I hate to agree with him, but we could. There's a decent chance we could lose this week.
Well, absolutely. NC State's a better football team than Florida State, but much like I've stated the entire season, throw out Duke. Pitt and NC State a couple weeks ago appeared to be the best teams in the conference, probably still are, but they both lost to Miami the last 2 weeks. You could throw out any matchup to me in the ACC and I'd say, I'll guess who's going to win, but I don't know.
Mark, it's the ACC circle of suck. Let me go through it with you real quick. Florida State beat North Carolina, who beat Virginia, who beat Miami, who beat NC State, who beat Louisville, who beat Florida State. I know that wasn't a circle, but it's the circle of suck in the ACC this year. So yes, this is an NC State team who, like you said, on paper, should come into Tallahassee and win the game convincingly by 7 to 10 points. This is also the same NC State team that came down to Miami. And I'm sorry, I'll give Miami credit. Miami controlled that game. From the start of that game till the end, Miami had control of that game. And this was a Miami team that was coming off a 2-game losing streak and was 2-4 entering that game, and their season was essentially over at that point. So this is the question: is which NC State team is going to show up? Is it going to be that NC State team that looks hot against Clemson, that looks hot last week against a Louisville team that beat us by, I would argue, more than what the final score was? or is it going to be the NC State team that's coming in cocky like they did against Miami and gets sent back out of the state of Florida with a loss?
Well, Jason, to kind of take your point that you just made about the circle of life in the ACC, I'm going to say that those two NC State teams aren't that different. The team that beat Miami by 1 point and the team that lost to Miami by 1 point and the team that beat Clemson in overtime are probably that much different. That's the point I'm making. It's razor thin in this conference. Syracuse was supposed to be an awful team. And they started to play really close to teams like Florida State and Wake that they took to overtime. And now they're starting to win games in the conference.
And this is why Wake Forest, we can agree or disagree on this one. This is why even if Wake Forest is undefeated, will not even sniff the playoff. Because the ACC right now has no credibility as a competitive Power 5 conference this season to give Wake Forest. Even if Wake Forest beats NC State and Clemson in the final month of the season, that's not going to be enough, I think, to get Wake Forest over the top into one of the Final Four spots. Especially when they've already got, an Oregon team in there with a loss in the first four, or an Alabama team that's number 2. I'm sorry, come on, really, Alabama number 2 playoff team? Stop playoff. Stop it. You're drunk.
Yeah, Alabama does not have the second best resume in college football.
Who's your second?
My number 2 team is Michigan State. My 4 currently, I'm just taking basically my top 25 and looking at the first 4 is Georgia, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Alabama.
So you put Alabama. You think Alabama's loss to Texas A&M was a better loss than Ohio State's to Oregon?
No. That's only one game.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think
the entire resume is better.
You think Alabama's entire resume is better than Ohio
Yes.
State? Okay. I'd probably put Georgia at 1. 2, I'd probably go, I'd say Oklahoma, just because I think Oklahoma has a slightly better resume over Michigan State. I think Michigan State has a chance over the last couple of weeks. They play Penn State, they play Ohio State. I think they have a chance to jump up. But right now, I'd probably say Georgia, Oklahoma, Michigan State. I'd put Ohio State at 4. I really think Ohio State has bounced back big time from that Oregon loss. And I think they're going to absolutely smoke the hell out of both Michigan State. And I think they're going to smoke the hell out of Michigan. I know that makes you happy. But I think Ohio State will somehow get into the playoff.
Yeah. Well, our conversation here is not about what I'm projecting. I'm just talking about right this second.
I'm deflecting from the fact that my team is 3-5 right now. This is called deflection.
And if you look below, Mr. HD is pointing out that you have the opportunity to bring back the 3-6 Mafia.
Mr. HD is a fan of a Miami team that's playing a Georgia Tech team that they have struggled with at home. And Miami fans, you're getting a little cocky for a team that just got back to 500. Congratulations. 2 ranked wins. No one saw that coming. So being sincere, congratulations. But no, don't get cocky. You got to play a Georgia Tech team. They might sting you. Get it? Yellow Jackets? Sting.
Got it. D-Rock Irish keeping us updated on recruiting news with one Drake Bowman linebacker announcing his commitment tonight. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, D-Rock Irish.
Wow. Auburn, Notre Dame, and Clemson. The cream of the crop.
Yeah. So Chuba. I go Chuba, you go Chuba. Purdy.
We'll call him Purdy. There we go. We'll go by his last name.
He has hit the transfer portal.
Right. And a lot. Now here's the problem. And Georgia Ron, thank you for your loyal viewer. We appreciate it. All the loyal viewers, we appreciate it. But I feel like once again, now everyone's being critical about Jordan because we lost the game. In the 3 was after that North Carolina game, everyone was loving them some Jordan Travis. After that Syracuse game, even for a part, everyone was loving them some Jordan Travis. Now I feel like it's after a loss, and everyone's like, Jordan bad, Jordan bad, Jordan bad. Yes, Jordan had a bad game. I believe he threw for if you want to look up his yardage, he threw for 2 touchdowns. Essentially, there was no rushing game. He was our offense in this game. I'm not saying he'd play great, but what other option do we have? All of you who wanted Mackenzie Milton, guess what? Mackenzie Milton is obviously not as good either at this rate.
Yeah, well, that decision could be coming from two directions, meaning that Mike Norvell is going to play the better player as it stands right now. But if it's close, he could say, okay, Mackenzie Milton, let's say, I'm guessing that Jordan Travis has been the better player in practice. He's been the better player in the games, and that Mike Norvell is making just the decision that he's playing the better quarterback. But even if he thinks it's a toss up, or let's say he even thinks Mackenzie Milton is slightly better, they're not going anywhere this year. They've got to prepare Jordan Travis, get him the reps, and get him ready for next year.
Well, we say they're not going anywhere, but let's just be honest. Let's play the positive end. Here's the positive end of the rainbow. You've got 2 games at home against NC State and Miami, and you've got a Boston College team that's on their way down on the downhill slide, and you've got a Florida team who's currently lost 3 of their last 4 games. There are 3 wins out there. If Florida State plays their best game, if Florida State can bring their best game at least 3 times, there are 3 wins out there. There are also 3 losses out there. So that's where the disaster could happen. There's a disaster that Florida State could end up 4-8. But there's a decent chance Florida State could end up 6-6 and going back to a bowl game. This is where the question has to come up. And if Jordan Travis has another bad game, which he's fully capable of, what other option do we have now, quarterback? Boomer, you're right. Moral victories don't count. Yes, I agree with you. It's a good thing that we played Clemson better for the first time in about 5 years. It's a 100% better thing. That being said, it's still a loss. It counts the same. There's no wins, losses, moral victories. There's wins and losses. So, yes, it counts the same. But you have to admit that this does give us has to give a little bit of confidence coming up against, I'd argue our next 3 games are all winnable.
I'm right there with you. I think that they're all, I think based on the way Boston College is playing, that Florida State, I would hope that they're going to win that game. I would have said a few weeks ago that Boston College was the better team, but Florida State's playing better right now, and BC is just on a slide. They scored 6 points against Syracuse Saturday.
Well,
they scored 1 touchdown against NC State.
Well, when BC and Syracuse just play, you can throw out all the records because that's the battle in the ACC right there.
There it is.
It's not Georgia Tech, Clemson. It's not Virginia Tech. It's Boston College, Syracuse.
So yes, all these games for Florida State going forward, to me, are close to toss-ups. Florida's a better team right now as it stands, but who knows where their heads are going to be the final game of the season. Florida State's better than BC, as I mentioned. That's my take on it. And NC State slightly better, but the game's in Tallahassee. And which game am I missing?
Boston College, Miami, NC State, and Florida.
Miami.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Here's the thing. We know NC State's coming in a little bit more confident after a decent win against Louisville. But that being said, we don't know which team is going to show up. Let's say Florida State in a perfect world wins this week and is 4-5, and Miami, whether they win or lose, 5-4 or 4-5 as well. But if Miami does lose to Georgia Tech, Florida State, there's some confidence right there. And then you've got Boston College. So there are chances right there. But Florida State has to take advantage of the situation in front of them. Yes, the Clemson win was there. But they cannot keep looking at that win, that lost opportunity. Because if you keep hitting around that lost opportunity, I feel like that's a lot of what happened in the Notre Dame game. It was, we could have beaten Notre Dame. Oh, wait, Jacksonville State just beat us. Oh, what was us? We lost to Jacksonville State. Oh, Wake Forest just killed us. Oh, Wake Forest just killed us. Oh, Louisville just beat us. You cannot do that. You have to Clemson beat us. Shocker. They beat us. They've won 5 straight games against us. Wait. Sorry, I apologize. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 6 straight games against us. You can't look at that. You've got to look at the NC State game. Congratulations, Jordan. He didn't win the ACC. He didn't win the ACC. He came in, he got cocky. He was talking about how great he was at NC State. They went to the Tangerine Bowl. I think they went to the Gator Bowl one year. Sorry, Jordan. Good quarterback, not as great as everyone says he is. Hot take of the day. Presented by Popeyes.
Best season in program history.
Tangerine Bowl.
Yes, but winning has to be evaluated differently at different schools.
Sorry,
right?
Florida State's about championships. At NC State, it was the Tangerine Bowl.
We're going to talk some NC State football. I dropped a link in the direction of one Corey Smith from Pack Pride, and he can talk a little NC State for us. Corey, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. This is Jason Parker right here from NBC6.
How's it going, brother? Of course, you're rocking the Braves hat. Conveniently rocking the Braves hat. Just happened to be after they win their first World Series since '95. The old school Braves look.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wearing this for a little while. I mean, I have several Braves hats, but I had to wear the fresh one for it. So.
Of course.
Being in North Carolina, we don't have a professional team, so we've always rooted for NC or for Atlanta.
A lot of people down here rooted for the Braves from when they used to spring train in West Palm, so I get it. I completely understand it.
Hey, Jason, I'm going to let you two go at it. I was fortunate enough to have Corey on the other day, so we recorded a segment already.
Corey, talk to me about NC State. Now, we talked about it a little bit here. This is the NC State team that looked good against Louisville after looking, I'm not going to say looking bad, but being upset the week before against Miami. This is the NC State team we're trying to figure out. Explain to me how this NC State team goes from an embarrassing loss to Miami, not score-wise, but just an embarrassing loss to a team that I think they should have won, to looking pretty damn good against Louisville. What happened in that week between that got them to change their mindset?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about NC State in their two losses so far, and this is not an excuse or anything along those lines, but it's just a fact. In that Mississippi State loss, they lost Peyton Wilson, who was kind of seen as the preseason, potential ACC Player of the Year and a first-team All-ACC linebacker. They lost him. They had to reshuffle the defense on the fly, and they gave up a lot of big plays as a result. Miami game, they lost a guy in Isaiah Moore in the second quarter, who was seen as, kind of the midseason ACC Defensive Player of the Year, possibly. So they had to reshuffle the defense, give up, that final play especially was one of the biggest issues where they gave up a pass across the middle to a tight end. Linebackers don't know their assignments, miss the assignment completely, and that ends up leading to a loss against Miami. They've reshuffled things again, moved a guy that was playing outside linebacker to middle linebacker, and Drake Thomas. He responded this past week with 15 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks against Louisville, and really kept Malik Cunningham at bay. And that was something that NC State really, really needed in that game. That's their hope against Jordan Travis again this week, is to be able to do something very similar, to be able to limit him and play well against the pass. And then that way you make this team, you force this team to have to pass the ball if you're able to bottle them up in terms of the running game.
The Wolfpack have been an injured team. You talk about, there's been several different guys, some with Florida State ties, former Florida State players who are done for the season. How does this happen? Like, what do you attribute to those? I mean, is it just is there something in the way that the practices are going? Or is it just the tough play right now of the circle of suck in the ACC?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I mean, when I look, are you talking about the injuries, or are you talking about just the
injuries? Yeah, just injuries in general. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I got you. I mean, for NC State, I mean, some of them there hasn't been a ton of injuries. It just so happens to be that, for some reason, they're all too critical players. I mean, like I said, Peyton Wilson was a guy that was seen before the season as one of the best defensive players in the ACC. Cyrus Fagan was, as you mentioned, a transfer from Florida State to NC State. Didn't get the start in the first game, starts in the second game, he has a season-ending injury in that one. And then, now this past week, 2 weeks ago, Isaiah Moore, one of the, he was named the, kind of called the heartbeat of the team or the entire defense. He's lost now for the season. I mean, guys like that, you just can't afford to lose. So, if it's a second string guy and you've got your, he's a depth piece, it's one thing, but you're losing, I mean, NC State and several teams across the ACC. I mean, we've seen it with Clemson, particularly. We've seen it obviously with several programs that, we're planning on contending outside of Wake, which has been one of the luckier teams when it comes to injury so far this season. So when you lose players like that, especially in game, it reshuffles things, and it can sometimes lead to losses like we saw at Miami.
Absolutely. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, we talked about this earlier, Devin Leary. I mean, there's a decent argument. He's either the best player in the ACC or number two. He's up there in the top two players right now, top two quarterbacks right now in the ACC. What has been his key to success? And Mark, you said his numbers are 21-2, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions right now. That's amazing through 8 games. What has been his key to success so far the first 8 games of the season?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, it's being safe with the ball. It's not making bad decisions, which does help. But, he also has, I mean, I will say this, it's a combination of a lot of things. But, Dave Doran said the other day, the key to his success is really is not changing, like being the same guy on a consistent basis. He said, guys like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, everybody talks about how they just become these like superhuman guys in the fourth quarter. And it's not really that. It's just the fact that they don't change while other people around them do. Like they just stay solid and continue to do their thing and continue to be successful late in those games. But another thing I'll say too is he has some wide receivers, guys like Devin Carter, who, dropped a pretty big pass against Miami, but for the most part has been a reliable receiver. And a guy like Emeka Emezi, 2 guys that are over 6'3", very strong wide receivers that he can throw it up in the air. And for the most part, they can, if they don't make the catch, they can contend with the DBs that are going up against them. And they're able to be able to limit them too. So, if that way you don't give up an interception, you don't have those types of fluky plays. So he's played really, really well, and he trusts everybody around him to be able to make plays. And he's just a very, very smart quarterback. He's got a big arm that he can, he can throw down the field. But a lot of times he ends up using the guys that he has, the big, strong wide receivers that he has to be able to make those plays.
Is there any concern? Final question for me. Is there any concern? Obviously, we've talked about this. Florida State's having a down year, well, a down half decade pretty much. Is there any concern? NC State comes in as a favorite in this game. Is there any concern of a possible letdown against a team that on paper NC State should come out victorious against? Because this is a Florida State team that has talent, but at times has been able to put together against North Carolina, put together against Syracuse, wasn't able to finish the job against Clemson like you guys were able to do. Is there any concern that you guys could have a hiccup against Florida State this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always that concern when you're facing a team that, like you said, has a lot of talent, has a lot of athleticism. Teams from Florida just have a ton of speed. I mean, Florida State, one of the things that they've done better this year than Miami is being able to tackle. And Miami actually tackled really well against NC State in that game. And one of the big reasons for that is because they were able to load up the box. They were able to compete with NC State. And NC State was trying to go to these short passes, trying to be able to get the ball down the field. And they weren't able to do it because they weren't able to get the ball down the field. They weren't able to run the ball into Miami. So they're going to have to be able to do that against Florida State this weekend. And we'll see exactly, what they're able to do. If they're able to contend with that talent, they're able to contend with that speed that Florida State has. I think that's going to end up paying dividends for NC State. So, the big thing for them is being able to get out to an early lead, being able to, get stuff going early on, which is not something they've been able to do the last few weeks, and take some of that pressure off the defense. And so that way they can play a little bit more all out compared to what they've had to do the last few weeks.
I apologize for saying that Philip Rivers was overrated. I still do think he was overrated, but I apologize. You're a good guy, Corey, so I apologize to you and Wolfpack Nation. I stand by my statement, but I apologize for saying that.
But before Jason said that, I was going to say, I know this is probably going a little bit before Corey's time, but you better settle a debate for us because we had to start to go back and forth on Phillip Rivers, both at the collegiate and the NFL level.
He was in my time at FSU as a student, so he talked a lot of smack. Didn't win the ACC. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
And it wasn't necessarily because of.
No.
I'll say it wasn't always because of him. And the reason why I say that is because here's where the issue was for Phillip Rivers and for NC State as a whole, is because of Phillip Rivers, because of the offensive success they had, and some of the success they had overall, they were able to recruit really well defensively. And all of those defensive players, guys like Manny Lawson, guys like Mario Williams, Stephen Tulloch that came from Florida, a lot of different guys they had come in, all came in those later classes. So they had the number one defense in the country that was, Manny Diaz happened to be on that staff after Phillip Rivers left. But when Phillip Rivers was there, they did not have a ton of defensive success. So he was having to throw the ball all over the yard.
Phillip Rivers, his last year at NC State, brought his North Carolina State team to Columbus and played the defending national champions.
Yeah.
And a team that would finish in the top 5 in the country that year, the following year there in 2003, and took them to the wire in overtime, 44-38.
Went to a double overtime against Florida State. So, yes. No. He was a good quarterback. He was fun.
Last thing I got for you, Corey. We kind of touched on this the other day because, again, with NC State, we're looking at a program that's not lining it up every year thinking, hey, we're going to go to a college football playoff type deal. It's cyclical. It's okay. Where's the development of this roster? Where do we stand? What's the schedule look like? Because of Clemson being down this year, because of it being right where it is at this point in the season, and everything's right there to play for. Is this fan base going to think like something got away if they're not able to close it out this year and get to the conference championship game? Yeah.
I think so, because again, like we've said, you don't get many years where Clemson is down. This is, the Florida State of old. Like, you think back to the 90s, like if Florida State was ever down, all of a sudden everybody else is like, oh, we have a shot. You think back to the 2000s, in the early 2010s, we were talking about, all of these things about, that Florida State team at the time. Jimbo Fisher, when he first initially got there, it was like, all right, nobody's going to contend with this team. And then the rise of Clemson. So for NC State, these opportunities, and for Wake, I'll say this about Wake Forest too, like these opportunities are few and far between to be able to win, this side of the division, not even just the ACC as a whole, because you have to get to the ACC championship game to be able to win it. And not many teams have been beating Clemson over the years. So, it's you have to be perfect. They have to be able to win these games. And, for NC State, that's one thing they haven't been able to do over the years. They haven't been able to win the winnable games, to be able to get to that point. And then, a lot of times when they get into those situations, like they'll have at Wake Forest in 2 weeks, if they beat Florida State, obviously they have to get through that one first. But, going into that game against Wake Forest in 2 weeks from now, if they're not able to win that game, it's going to be looked as a letdown of a season, because they had that opportunity to get there and they missed it yet again. So
NC State Wake Forest is going to be for the ACC Atlantic title.
Weird, man. It's weird.
God,
I love it. Corey, one last thing.
Yes,
I know
sir.
I said one last thing. Do you take up for the ACC? Are you a conference guy? Do you want the conference to do well? Do you root for the other teams during bowl play? All of that?
No. Look, I'll say this, maybe during bowl play, but I think this isn't the SEC where, everybody's just all SEC versus the world. Like, the ACC is just like, no, we're out for ourselves. We all want to win. There's certain teams that if you see guys move around from other conferences and things like that, you'll root for those types of guys, those types of individuals, those coaches that you like. And Mike Norvell happens to be a coach that I actually do like. I mean, in talking to him in the past, he seemed like a really level-headed dude. He's had his issues over the last year and a half, but it's not something where you have to think like, oh, he can't rebound from this. He can never recover from this because he's bringing in the talent. If he's able to sign the top 10 class that he has right now, then yeah, I think he has a good shot to be able to turn things around. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to catch an NC State fan that's going to say, oh yeah, I'm here rooting for UNC, or I'm here rooting for Syracuse, because of, there's just, it's not really that. And nobody's rooting for Clemson.
Right.
Clemson winning either.
Corey, I think will agree with me on this one. We are both actively rooting for Clemson to lose every single week. I'm actively rooting for Miami to lose every single week. I don't mind if NC State, we joke about it. You asked who would I want, Mark? I said Wake Forest. I would not mind if NC State won the Atlantic. I really wouldn't. But I want Clemson to go 0-12. I want Miami to go 0-12. I don't give a damn if they're in our conference. I want pain. I want suffering in Coral Gables and in South Carolina. Pain.
Corey Smith, Pack Pride, everyone. If you want to catch up on the other side of it, know your enemy, know your opponent here, folks. So go to Pack Pride, catch up on NC State football with Corey Smith. Corey, we appreciate you doing this today for us, and you have a good week. Enjoy the game.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that should about do it. You got anything else for us, Jason?
All right, I'm going to do something bold.
Yes.
Bold proclamation.
Okay.
Florida State 31, NC State 28. I'm going with loyalty to the alma mater over my brain. Heart over head on this one.
Okay. There takes a certain amount of risk to do that. Still, at the same time, it's only a 3-point spread, so it's not a monumental upset.
I'm going with it.
Okay.
Party in the streets of Tallahassee.
I am going 13-5 against the spread last weekend. Now, I can't promise that every week. 107-69 against the spread for the season. So that means you got to join us on Patreon, right? Folks, and you get Jason's picks there too.
And then you can pick the opposite of what I pick, because let's put up Jason's numbers real quick. Just reverse that 5 and 13. I think we'll be.
I don't have them for last week. I thought they were pretty decent. I don't remember exactly. So we pick a 12-pack. So Jason's part of our 20-person media panel that we select a 12-pack. Then I go a little bit beyond that and select the top 25. So thus the 18-game total from last week. So I've got to capitalize on this as long as you know what happens when you predict games every week. The downfall's coming at some point.
Keep getting cocky, Mark. Keep getting cocky. You sound like a Miami fan right now. That's all I'm saying to you. You're going to throw out a turnover chain in a moment.
This proves that Jason doesn't hear anything I say.
I do. I heard exactly what you said. But I'm just waiting for you to put the Cuban link chain on in a moment with the 13-5 right now against the spread.
Next Wednesday, 6 o'clock Eastern. Jason Parker, NBC 6. My name's Mark. Keep it locked in here at Florida State Seminoles Live.